What if two of the world's most powerful tech giants suddenly went head-to-head in a battle that could change the future? Imagine the tension crackling in the air as Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, titans of innovation and ambition, lock eyes across a crowded Silicon Valley conference hall. It wasn't just a disagreement over technology or business strategies, it was a clash that promised to shake the very foundations of the tech world. The crowd was buzzing, cameras flashing, social media exploding with speculation. Elon, with his intense gaze and unpredictable charisma, had just taken the stage and issued a challenge that stunned everyone. If Mark truly believes his vision will change humanity's future, then let's settle this, head to head. Mark, never one to back down, rose calmly and smiled, a smile that masked the storm brewing beneath. "Let the best vision win," he replied, voice steady but firm. What started as a seemingly polite exchange quickly spiraled into a war of words that dominated headlines and polarized opinions worldwide. Was this just a publicity stunt or the beginning of something far bigger? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? These two men, each a symbol of American innovation and relentless drive, had more in common than anyone expected, but their visions for the future couldn't have been more different. Elon, the rocket man with dreams of colonizing Mars, obsessed with pushing humanity beyond Earth's limits. Mark, the social media emperor, focused on connecting billions but grappling with the costs of digital intimacy and privacy. Their paths had crossed before, briefly, at conferences or in interviews, but nothing like this. The tension wasn't just professional, it was personal. Rumors swirled about old grudges, philosophical clashes, and competitive jabs hidden beneath the polished veneer of public personas. The tech world had been watching, holding its breath, as two of the most influential figures in history prepared to go head-to-head. But what could possibly ignite such a fierce rivalry? The answer lay buried deep in their ambitions and fears. Elon, who had transformed electric cars, space exploration, and renewable energy, believed that humanity's future depended on radical innovation and unshackling from old norms. Zuckerberg, who had connected over 2 billion people worldwide through Facebook and now Meta, saw the future in virtual reality and the power of human connection, even if it meant sacrificing privacy and comfort. The unexpected moment that sparked the battle came during an explosive Twitter rant from Elon, criticizing Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse as a distraction from real-world problems. Mark, never one to stay silent, responded with a carefully worded blog post accusing Elon of recklessness and ego-driven failures. The media pounced, turning a simmering tension into a full-blown war. Investors, employees, and fans took sides. The rivalry became the stuff of legend, a battle for control over the future of technology itself. But beneath the headlines and social media storms lay two men wrestling with their own demons. Elon's relentless drive born from a complicated childhood in South Africa, Mark struggled to balance ambition with a desire to do good. What happened next would change everything, not just for them, but for the world watching. This story unfolds chronologically, tracing their rise, their clash, and the surprising twists that would force both men to confront what truly matters. It's a story about power, vision, betrayal, and unexpected alliances. What started as a simple disagreement exploded into a saga of high stakes and deep emotion. As we journey through their stories, you'll see how ambition can be both a force for incredible creation and devastating destruction. How rivalry can bring out the best, and the worst, in people. And ultimately, how even the greatest battles can lead to surprising lessons about love, sacrifice, and humanity. So buckle up. This is not just a story about tech giants, it's a story about what it means to be human in an age of rapid change. What pushes you forward when everything seems against you? For Elon, it's the vision of a future where humanity thrives beyond Earth's limits. For Mark, it's the hope of a world more connected, more understood. For both, it's a battle that will test every part of who they are. The stage is set. The players are ready. And the battle just got real. Elon Musk's story begins far from the sleek boardrooms and rocket launches he's known for today. deep in the rolling hills of Pretoria, South Africa, where he was born in 1971. From a young age, Elon was marked by a restless curiosity that set him apart. As a boy, he was introverted, often lost in books and machines, spending hours teaching himself computer programming and devouring science fiction that painted worlds far beyond his own. His parents, May and Elon Musk, provided a complicated backdrop to his formative years. May, a strong, determined model and dietitian, and Elon, an engineer with a volatile temperament. Family life was far from idyllic, tension often simmered beneath the surface, with Elon caught in the crossfire of conflict and expectation. These early emotional complexities forged a resilience and an unyielding ambition within him, but also seeded a streak of stubbornness and isolation. Despite struggles at school, where he sometimes faced bullying for his awkwardness and intensity, Elon found solace in his projects. At just 12 years old, he sold the code for a video game he created, showing early signs of the entrepreneurial spirit that would one day reshape industries. His adolescence was marked by a relentless drive to escape the constraints of his environment and a desire to seek greater horizons. At 17, Elon made the bold decision to leave South Africa for North America, seeing it as the land of opportunity where he could turn his dreams into reality. Landing first in Canada before transferring to the University of Pennsylvania, he quickly distinguished himself academically, studying physics and economics, driven by a vision of not just understanding the world, but changing it. Yet Elon's story isn't just about intellect, it's deeply personal. His relationship with his family remained complicated, especially with his father. The emotional scars of that relationship would follow him into adulthood, influencing his often brusque and private demeanor. At the same time, he found pockets of support and love, particularly in his mother and siblings. These relationships gave him a foundation, but also underscored the loneliness that often shadowed his rise. Elon's early ventures, Zip2 and later X.com, which evolved into PayPal, showed flashes of genius and grit. The collapse of some ventures and the success of others were not just business milestones but emotional milestones, shaping his identity. The sale of PayPal for $1.5 billion gave Elon both the financial means and the confidence to pursue his grandest ambitions: space exploration with SpaceX, electric cars with Tesla, and sustainable energy. But his journey was not without setbacks and sacrifices. The early days of SpaceX were filled with rocket failures and near bankruptcy. Tesla struggled to survive the 2008 financial crisis, and Elon himself endured public scrutiny, personal turmoil, and relentless pressure. His marriage and family life were complex and often strained, revealing a man driven as much by obsession as by love. Throughout it all, Elon's psychology was shaped by a vision of a future beyond Earth, a future where humanity could thrive on Mars, free from the constraints of earthly limitations and crises. This obsession with space was more than science, it was personal salvation, a way to fight the loneliness and pain he'd carried since childhood. His relentless work ethic, often described as bordering on obsession, alienated many but also propelled him to extraordinary heights. Elon's emotional landscape was marked by extremes, moments of visionary optimism and moments of deep vulnerability. Friends described him as intensely focused, sometimes distant, but always driven by a desire to do what others said was impossible. His social relationships were often transactional, built around shared ambition and innovation, but he deeply valued loyalty and vision. As Tesla's success grew, Elon's public persona became larger than life, part genius inventor, part risk-taking entrepreneur, part unpredictable maverick. Yet behind the headlines was a man still grappling with the weight of expectations, failures, and a yearning for something greater than wealth or fame. This inner tension fueled his decisions and shaped his responses to challenges, including the rivalry with Zuckerberg that was about to erupt. Elon's story is not just one of technological triumph but of a complicated human being shaped by early struggles, fierce ambition, and an unbreakable belief in a future that others could barely imagine. It is this complex blend of genius and vulnerability, ambition and pain, that makes him a figure both inspiring and controversial. Understanding Elon's past is key to understanding his actions and motivations as the battle with Zuckerberg heats up, because beneath the billionaire mogul lies a man fighting for a legacy, a future, and maybe, ultimately, for connection. Mark Zuckerberg's journey begins in Dobbs Ferry, New York, where he was born in 1984 to a dentist and a psychiatrist, an environment grounded in intellect and stability but marked by early signs of intense curiosity and ambition. From a young age, Mark displayed a prodigious talent for computer programming, creating messaging programs and early social software that impressed family and friends alike. His childhood was relatively sheltered compared to the stormy emotional landscapes of many tech titans, but even in this calm, the seeds of future internal conflict were planted. His upbringing in a supportive family provided a foundation of encouragement, yet it also carried the pressure of expectation and the subtle tension of balancing personal passion with public responsibility. His relationship with his parents was warm but underscored by an unspoken push toward achievement and success, values that would later define much of his professional life. At Ardsley High School and later at Phillips Exeter Academy, Mark's skills grew exponentially. He was known for his intense focus, sometimes to the point of social awkwardness, and a deep belief that technology could fundamentally change human connection. This belief would become his guiding light, and his source of controversy. When Mark enrolled at Harvard University, the stage was set for one of the most dramatic transformations in the history of the Internet. In his dorm room, he launched the Facebook in 2004, originally designed as a social network limited to Harvard students but soon exploding into a global phenomenon that would redefine how billions communicate. But alongside this meteoric rise came an intense internal struggle. Mark was thrust into the spotlight as a young man barely out of college, grappling with the pressures of leadership, public scrutiny, and the ethical dilemmas posed by his creation. His relationships, both personal and professional, were deeply intertwined with this journey. His partnership with Priscilla Chan, who would become his wife, provided emotional grounding and a glimpse of normalcy amid the chaos of tech stardom. Their bond was a rare source of balance in a life otherwise consumed by ambition and controversy. Professionally, Mark's friendships and alliances with early Facebook employees were complicated by disputes over credit, control, and vision. Lawsuits and accusations of betrayal peppered his rise, fueling a narrative of a brilliant but sometimes ruthless leader. Yet what truly set Mark apart was his evolving philosophy about technology's role in society. He believed in the power of connection, in creating a global village where people could share ideas, support each other, and break down barriers. But this idealism was constantly tested by the realities of privacy breaches, misinformation, and the unintended consequences of the platform he built. Public criticism mounted as Facebook became the epicenter of debates about data security and social responsibility. Mark found himself caught between defending his creation and acknowledging its flaws, a balancing act that took a toll on his public image and personal psyche. Unlike Elon's fiery and sometimes erratic style, Mark's approach was measured, calculated, and often guarded. His public appearances were calm, almost robotic at times, but beneath that veneer lay a man deeply troubled by the weight of his decisions and the impact on millions of lives. This internal conflict shaped much of his psychology, a desire to do good counterbalanced by the demands of business growth and shareholder expectations. Mark's ambitions expanded beyond Facebook into the realm of virtual reality with Meta, aiming to create immersive digital worlds that could deepen human connection but also raised new ethical and philosophical questions. This shift reignited debates about technology's role in shaping identity and society, placing Mark at the center of a new kind of controversy. His story is one of innovation shadowed by responsibility, ambition shadowed by doubt. Understanding Mark's backstory is essential to grasp why his rivalry with Elon Musk would not just be about technology or ego, but about fundamentally different visions for humanity's future. Beneath the billionaire CEO was a man wrestling with how to balance power, responsibility, and a desire to create meaning in a rapidly changing world. Mark's personal struggles, his fear of failure, his hope for redemption, and his drive to connect people, would collide spectacularly with Elon's unyielding push for radical change. This chapter of Mark's life sets the stage for the conflict to come, revealing a complex, often contradictory figure whose story is as much about human emotion as it is about technological innovation. In the battle between these two men, it is not just their companies or inventions at stake, but their very identities and what they believe the future should hold. The rivalry that had been simmering beneath the surface between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg suddenly burst into the public eye, igniting a firestorm that would grip the world. It began subtly, small jabs in interviews, thinly veiled critiques during tech summits, but quickly escalated into open conflict. The first spark was Elon's public criticism of Facebook's handling of user data. On Twitter, the platform where Elon was both king and unpredictable messenger, he posted a series of tweets questioning Zuckerberg's commitment to privacy, calling Facebook's data policies reckless and dangerous for society. The tweet struck a nerve. Facebook was already under intense scrutiny for data breaches and misinformation, and Elon's words seemed to give voice to a widespread frustration. Zuckerberg, never one to ignore a public challenge, responded swiftly. In a carefully crafted blog post published on Meta's site, he defended the company's efforts, arguing that connection and community outweighed the risks, and implied that Elon's critiques came from a lack of understanding of social technology's complexity. The post was firm but measured, a strategic move to maintain Facebook's reputation while subtly pushing back. The media exploded with headlines framing the clash as a battle of visions: Elon, the fearless innovator pushing humanity toward Mars and clean energy, versus Mark, the master of connection and social networks. Social media feeds filled with memes, debates, and heated arguments as millions took sides. This public showdown was more than a feud, it was a collision of ideologies and ambitions that mirrored deeper conflicts in the tech world. Behind the scenes, tensions were rising too. Elon and Zuckerberg's respective teams exchanged terse communications, each side wary of leaks and sabotage. Employees watched nervously, unsure if their leaders' rivalry would distract from their work or fuel innovation. The pressure on both CEOs mounted, not just from public expectations but from investors demanding results and media hungry for drama. The first major incident came during a virtual global conference on artificial intelligence. Elon was a keynote speaker, and he used his platform to warn against the unchecked development of AI technologies, indirectly criticizing Meta's ambitious AI projects. Without proper oversight, AI could become the greatest risk humanity has ever faced, he declared. Zuckerberg, watching from his office, took it personally. AI was the cornerstone of Meta's next phase, the metaverse, and Elon's comments felt like a direct attack on his vision. In response, Zuckerberg posted a video on Facebook Live, calmly explaining Meta's commitment to ethical AI development and accusing critics of fearmongering. But the calm facade masked a growing storm. The battle now had a rhythm of highs and lows. Elon's provocative statement sparked outrage and support in equal measure, while Zuckerberg's measured responses aimed to steady the ship but sometimes came across as defensive. The media dubbed this the "Clash of Titans," with daily coverage dissecting every tweet, speech, and public appearance. Meanwhile, the rivalry seeped into other arenas. Tesla and SpaceX projects were scrutinized through the lens of the conflict, while Meta's developments in virtual reality faced skepticism fueled by Elon's criticisms. Industry experts weighed in, some defending Elon's visionary risks, others cautioning against Zuckerberg's data-driven empire. This alternating pattern of confrontation and calm created a tense atmosphere, like a game of chess where each move was carefully calculated but charged with emotion. Just when it seemed the conflict might escalate beyond control, Zuckerberg attempted a diplomatic move. He reached out to Elon privately, proposing a meeting to discuss common concerns around AI and technology's future. Elon, known for his unpredictability, initially ignored the invitation, deep in the middle of Tesla's latest production challenges and SpaceX's upcoming launches. But as the media frenzy grew, and with pressure from advisors who saw the value in dialogue, Elon finally agreed. Their first private meeting was tense but civil. The two men, so often portrayed as rivals, shared surprisingly similar fears about AI's unchecked power, yet they clashed on how to address it. Elon advocated for strict regulation and transparency, while Zuckerberg pushed for innovation and cautious optimism. Their conversation revealed the complex layers beneath their public personas. Both were visionaries wrestling with uncertainty, each convinced that their approach was the right one. Despite the differences, the meeting planted a seed of potential collaboration. However, it also exposed just how deep the divide was. Elon's frustration with what he saw as Zuckerberg's slow pace and corporate bureaucracy contrasted sharply with Mark's skepticism of Elon's impulsiveness and risk-taking. This moment marked the first climax pattern in their saga, the climax of public hostility, the hope born from tentative private dialogue, and the subsequent climax of clashing philosophies. But the public was not content to wait for a quiet resolution. The media and social platforms buzzed with speculation, rumors, and conspiracy theories. Some suggested that the rivalry was a calculated stunt to boost stock prices or public interest, while others warned it could lead to catastrophic splits in the tech industry. Employees at both companies felt the pressure, with some whispering about the possibility of espionage or sabotage. The atmosphere was charged with suspicion and excitement. The stakes were higher than ever, not just for Musk and Zuckerberg, but for the future of technology itself. The battle was no longer about who had the better product or vision, it was about whose ideology would shape humanity's path forward. Elon, fueled by his childhood determination to defy expectations, saw Zuckerberg's vision as limited and potentially dangerous. Zuckerberg, shaped by his belief in connection and shared humanity, viewed Elon's relentless pursuit of technological conquest as reckless and isolating. Their conflict was a reflection of larger societal debates about innovation versus ethics, freedom versus control, and the human cost of progress. As this tension mounted, a dramatic event pushed the rivalry into a new, explosive phase. Elon, frustrated by what he called Zuckerberg's slow and secretive approach to AI development, revealed in a public interview that Tesla and SpaceX had developed their own advanced AI systems designed for transparency and safety. This announcement blindsided Zuckerberg and sent shockwaves through the industry. Zuckerberg responded with a sharp counterattack during a live-streamed Q&A, accusing Elon of using AI for unchecked ambition and warning of dangerous consequences. The verbal exchange escalated quickly, with both men trading barbs in interviews, social media, and public forums. The rivalry had become a battle of wills played out on the world stage, with millions watching and betting on the outcome. The emotional intensity was palpable, Elon's passion and unpredictability clashing with Zuckerberg's calculated defense and underlying anxiety. Behind the public spectacle were deep fears, fear of failure, fear of losing control, fear that their legacies might be defined not by their successes but by their conflicts. The media frenzy reached a fever pitch, with headlines like, "The Battle for the Future," and "Tech Giants at War." Analysts speculated on the impact on markets, innovation, and global policy. Industry leaders nervously awaited the next move, aware that this rivalry could alter the trajectory of AI, space exploration, social connection, and beyond. For Elon and Mark, the stakes were intensely personal. Each was driven not only by ambition but by a desire to prove their vision was right. The clash was as much about identity as it was about technology. The rising conflict was no longer just a story of two men but a reflection of the tension between competing futures. The world watched, waiting to see who would emerge victorious, or whether the battle would consume them both. The rivalry between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg had escalated beyond public sparring, entering a new, more dangerous phase marked by unexpected developments that would challenge both men on a level they had never anticipated. What began as a war of words and competing visions now became a high-stakes journey into uncharted territory, where innovation, ambition, and risk intertwined with personal vendettas and global implications. After months of tension and confrontations, the tech world watched as Elon announced an unprecedented project, a joint initiative aimed at creating the first human settlement on Mars, dubbed Red Frontier. This wasn't just another SpaceX mission. It was a bold, audacious plan that promised to revolutionize space travel and secure humanity's future beyond Earth. Elon's announcement was met with awe and skepticism. Many hailed it as visionary, others dismissed it as reckless grandstanding. But what caught the world's attention most was the unexpected twist: Mark Zuckerberg would be joining the project. This decision shocked everyone. The same Mark who had championed the digital realm and virtual connection was now stepping into the harsh, physical reality of space colonization, aligning himself with his fiercest rival. Behind closed doors, the announcement was part of a tense truce, a mutual recognition that some challenges were too great for either man to face alone. They agreed to pool resources, Elon's expertise in rockets and colonization, and Mark's cutting-edge AI systems and communication networks designed to maintain human connection across vast distances. The collaboration was uneasy at best. Early meetings were fraught with tension, disagreements over priorities, and clashes of personality. Elon pushed for rapid development, driven by a do-or-die mentality. Mark advocated for careful planning and ethical considerations, concerned about the social and psychological impact of space settlement. The conflict shifted from public media battles to intense boardroom confrontations. Both men were forced to confront not only their differences but their fears. The stakes were colossal. Success meant changing humanity's destiny, failure could mean catastrophe, both technological and personal. The project's setting was as dramatic as its ambitions. From the cutting-edge SpaceX facilities in California to the Silicon Valley labs where Meta's AI teams worked tirelessly, the narrative unfolded across diverse landscapes, from the cold vacuum of space to the buzzing nerve centers of tech innovation. Elon found himself navigating not just rocket science but the complexities of partnership with a man whose vision often felt alien to him. Mark, for his part, was thrust into a world of physical risk and tangible danger, far from the digital domains where he held sway. As development accelerated, the emotional and psychological toll on both men grew. Elon's relentless drive pushed his health and relationships to the brink, while Mark grappled with anxiety over the project's consequences and the potential erosion of his carefully curated public image. Their teams were caught in the crossfire, torn between loyalty and professionalism, inspired by the grand vision but wary of the personal drama. The journey to Mars was more than a scientific mission, it was a crucible that tested character, endurance, and humanity itself. Vivid scenes emerged, the deafening roar of rocket engines, the sterile confines of spacecraft interiors, the endless, barren Martian landscape that promised both hope and isolation. Elon and Mark experienced moments of exhilaration and despair, their contrasting temperaments shaping every decision and reaction. The adventure became a metaphor for their rivalry, pushing boundaries, confronting fears, and grappling with the unknown. Along the way, they faced unexpected challenges, technical failures that nearly ended the mission, internal conflicts that threatened to unravel cooperation, and external pressures from governments and the public demanding accountability. Each setback was a test of resilience and leadership, forcing both men to adapt and evolve. Yet amid the hardships, moments of hope emerged. They discovered shared values, a commitment to humanity's survival, a desire to create something lasting beyond personal gain. These fleeting instances hinted at the possibility of reconciliation and mutual respect. But the journey also revealed deep-seated vulnerabilities. Elon's fear of failure and loss, buried beneath his bravado, surfaced during critical moments of crisis. Mark's struggle with self-doubt and the weight of ethical responsibility became apparent in late-night discussions and tense debates. The emotional climax of this chapter came when a critical system malfunction during a Mars landing jeopardized the entire mission. Both men were forced to make split-second decisions under immense pressure. The successful resolution of this crisis marked a turning point, not just technically, but emotionally, signaling the fragile but real possibility of unity between two opposing forces. The story of their climactic journey is one of contrasts and convergence, tension and cooperation, ambition and humility. It captures the essence of what it means to push the limits of human endeavor while wrestling with the profound questions of purpose and connection. As the mission continued, Elon and Mark came to realize that their battle was less about winning or losing and more about learning from each other, and about what it truly means to lead humanity into the future. This chapter in their saga stands as a testament to the power of vision, the complexity of human emotion, and the unexpected ways rivalry can transform into partnership. Their journey into the unknown was not just a physical voyage across space but a profound exploration of identity, values, and the enduring quest for meaning in a rapidly changing world. The tension that had been building between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg finally reached a breaking point. The Mars mission, which had promised to unite two of the world's greatest tech visionaries, instead exposed fractures in their characters and in their uneasy alliance. As the spacecraft hurtled toward the red planet, the isolation and pressure magnified every fault, every fear, every unspoken doubt. Elon, who had always thrived on chaos and rapid innovation, found himself confronted by moments of vulnerability he rarely allowed himself to face. The weight of responsibility for the crew, for the mission's success, and for the future of humanity pressed heavily on him. He was no longer just a daring entrepreneur pushing boundaries but a man who had to reckon with the consequences of those pushes. Meanwhile, Mark grappled with a profound internal crisis. The digital world he had built, where information flowed freely and connections spanned continents instantly, now seemed fragile and inadequate against the vast silence and physical danger of space. His fears about the social and psychological impacts of colonization were no longer abstract concerns but urgent realities. Mark's idealism about technology connecting people clashed with the stark loneliness and risk of space travel. The confined quarters of the spacecraft forced Elon and Mark into close proximity, where their differences became impossible to ignore. Their conversations shifted from strategic planning to raw, emotional exchanges. Elon's usual bravado cracked, revealing insecurities about his legacy and the meaning behind his relentless drive. Mark, often reserved, opened up about his fears of failure, not just personal but for the vision he had championed. These moments were deeply human and unexpected. Both men, despite their vast fortunes and achievements, were wrestling with doubts and vulnerabilities that made their rivalry feel more like a shared struggle. The emotional climax came during a critical mission phase when a life support system malfunction threatened the entire crew. Panic surged through the control center on Earth and aboard the spacecraft. Elon and Mark were forced to cooperate fully, pooling their expertise in a tense, high-stakes operation that lasted hours. The success of the repair was a relief, but it left both men emotionally raw and reflective. The incident served as a powerful metaphor for their relationship. Despite conflict and competition, their fates were intertwined, and only through collaboration could they survive and succeed. The public followed the drama closely, captivated by the unfolding human story behind the headlines. The narrative shifted from a tale of rivalry to one of resilience, unity, and the complex realities of leadership in extraordinary circumstances. For Elon, the experience challenged his belief in solitary genius, showing him the value and limits of collaboration. For Mark, it underscored the need to balance idealism with pragmatism and to embrace risk in pursuit of greater goals. As the mission continued, the two men began to communicate more openly, acknowledging their mutual respect and the necessity of working together. Yet, this newfound understanding did not erase the deep philosophical divides between them. Their visions for the future still differed sharply. Elon's focus on expansion and physical survival contrasted with Mark's emphasis on social connection and digital evolution. This emotional climax was a turning point in the story, setting the stage for resolution but leaving lingering questions about the costs and consequences of ambition. The chapter concludes with a reflective moment as Elon and Mark gaze at the Martian horizon, aware that their journey has changed them profoundly. Their rivalry has evolved into something more complex, a mix of respect, competition, and a shared commitment to humanity's future. The story reminds us that beneath the public personas of tech giants are human beings grappling with fear, hope, and the search for meaning. This moment of revelation and emotional intensity marks a peak in the saga, offering the audience both tension and hope, and paving the way for the story's final chapters of resolution and reflection. As the dust settled from their harrowing journey and the mission on Mars entered a new phase of stability, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg found themselves reflecting deeply on everything that had transpired, not only the technical triumphs but the emotional and philosophical battles that had defined their relationship. The mission had pushed the boundaries of human capability, but it had also pushed the limits of their personalities and beliefs. Elon, once driven by the sheer thrill of conquest and the dream of making humanity multiplanetary, now saw the broader implications of his vision. He realized that technological advancement alone was not enough, the human element, the connections, emotions, and ethics, was equally vital. The isolation and danger of space had laid bare his vulnerabilities and reminded him of the importance of collaboration and empathy. For Mark, the mission had challenged his convictions in profound ways. His lifelong dedication to connecting people through digital platforms had been tested against the vastness and solitude of space. He saw firsthand the limits of virtual connection and the critical need for resilience, courage, and physical presence. The mission made him rethink his approach, blending his digital vision with a renewed appreciation for tangible human experience. Together, they acknowledged that their rivalry had been a catalyst for growth, both personal and professional. Their conflict, while often destructive, had driven them to question their assumptions and push beyond their comfort zones. The public battle, the private negotiations, and the shared trials on Mars had transformed them from adversaries into uneasy partners bound by a common purpose. This transformation did not erase their differences but enriched their understanding of what leadership and innovation truly required. The broader message was clear: progress comes with sacrifice, challenge, and the need to balance competing values. Their story became a powerful lesson in humility, resilience, and the complexity of human ambition. As they prepared to return to Earth, Elon and Mark addressed the world together, delivering a joint statement that was unprecedented in tone and content. They spoke openly about the challenges they faced, the mistakes they made, and the lessons they learned. They emphasized the importance of cooperation across industries and nations to tackle humanity's greatest challenges: climate change, technological ethics, and the future of exploration. The speech was hailed as a moment of reconciliation and hope, signaling a new chapter not only for them but for the technology world at large. Behind the scenes, the collaboration between their companies deepened, with joint projects focusing on sustainable energy, ethical AI, and space colonization. Their teams worked together more seamlessly, inspired by their leader's example. The rivalry had given way to a partnership that balanced innovation with responsibility. Yet, the story also carried a cautionary note. Both Elon and Mark acknowledged that ambition without reflection could lead to hubris and harm. They urged future leaders to consider not just what technology could do but what it should do. The emotional growth they experienced underscored the need for empathy, ethical grounding, and a commitment to shared humanity. This resolution brought the story full circle, from the opening conflict filled with drama and tension to a thoughtful conclusion rich with meaning. The audience was left with a message that transcended technology, that life's greatest battles are often within ourselves, and victory comes not from defeating others but from understanding and growth. Life is full of surprises, but love and collaboration will always lead the way, Elon said in the final moments of their statement. Mark nodded, adding, "And it's in our shared humanity that the future truly begins." This story, familiar yet extraordinary, invites readers to reflect on their own struggles and triumphs, reminding us all that even the greatest conflicts can spark new beginnings. The journey of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg is a testament to the power of vision, resilience, and the unyielding quest to shape a better world. After their joint mission and public reconciliation, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg found themselves at a crossroads, each facing a future reshaped by their experiences. The battle that once defined them had morphed into a collaboration that opened new possibilities but also new challenges. For Elon, the successful Mars settlement was both a milestone and a starting point. The realization that humanity could thrive beyond Earth fueled his desire to expand SpaceX's vision even further. Yet, the emotional lessons from the mission lingered. He understood that technological feats must be paired with deep responsibility, to people, to ethics, and to the planet left behind. This balance became central to his evolving leadership philosophy. Elon began investing more in sustainable technologies on Earth, driven by a renewed sense of urgency. The mission's risks had underscored the fragility of human life, and the importance of preserving Earth's environment became a cause close to his heart. Meanwhile, his public persona softened. He was no longer just the unpredictable maverick but a leader aware of his impact on society. For Mark Zuckerberg, the Mars mission shattered some of his long-held beliefs but also ignited fresh inspiration. The isolation and danger of space forced him to see technology not only as a tool for connection but also as a means to support human resilience and well-being. Returning to Meta, he championed projects focused on mental health, digital wellness, and ethical AI, aiming to create technologies that nurtured rather than drained human relationships. Mark also embraced a more transparent leadership style, engaging more openly with critics and users. The mission had taught him the power of humility and dialogue. The partnership forged between Elon and Mark evolved beyond Mars. Their companies launched joint initiatives tackling climate change, AI ethics, and global connectivity. These collaborations combined SpaceX's engineering prowess with Meta's digital reach, creating innovations that addressed complex global problems. The public reception was mixed. Some hailed the new alliance as a beacon of hope, others remained skeptical, wary of concentrated tech power. Both men understood the skepticism but were committed to proving that collaboration could be a force for good. Their rivalry, once a source of division, became a driver of progress. Yet, challenges persisted. Balancing competition and cooperation required constant negotiation, and old tensions occasionally flared. Both Elon and Mark wrestled with the demands of their expanded roles, the scrutiny of media, and the pressure to innovate responsibly. Their journey was far from over. On a personal level, both men found themselves reflecting on what truly mattered. Elon deepened his relationships with family and close friends, recognizing the human connections that had been sidelined by ambition. Mark sought balance through mindfulness and meaningful engagement beyond the digital realm. These shifts reflected a broader theme: success was no longer measured solely by achievements but by growth and impact. The story of their battle and alliance resonated widely, inspiring others to rethink rivalry, leadership, and purpose. It became a narrative not just about technology but about the evolving nature of human endeavor in the 21st century. In communities around the world, people debated the lessons of Elon and Mark's saga, seeing in it a mirror for their own struggles and aspirations. The journey from fierce rivalry to partnership offered hope that even the deepest conflicts could lead to understanding and innovation. As the chapter closes, Elon and Mark stand at the helm of a new era, one defined by collaboration, responsibility, and a shared vision for humanity's future. Their story invites us all to consider how we face challenges, embrace change, and work together to shape a better world. What began as a battle just got real has become a journey of transformation and hope. As Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg moved beyond their intense rivalry into a tentative partnership, the world's media and public perception played an outsized role in shaping their narrative. Every action, every statement was scrutinized, dissected, and broadcast across countless platforms, feeding an insatiable appetite for drama and spectacle. The battle between two of tech's most influential figures had been a media sensation, and even as they worked toward common goals, the headlines often framed their story as a continuing saga of conflict and competition. For Elon, the media spotlight was nothing new. His bold ventures, unpredictable tweets, and larger-than-life persona had long made him a favorite for sensational stories. Yet the transition from fiery competitor to reluctant collaborator required a delicate balancing act. Elon found himself carefully managing his public image, navigating the line between his authentic self, unfiltered and daring, and the responsibilities that came with leadership on a global stage. Mark Zuckerberg, once the target of relentless scrutiny and criticism for Meta's handling of privacy, misinformation, and digital ethics, faced a different kind of challenge. His evolution from reclusive founder to more transparent and engaged CEO was a strategic effort to rebuild trust and reshape public perception. The Mars mission and subsequent partnership with Elon became pivotal moments in this transformation. Still, media narratives often simplified the complexity of their relationship into good versus bad or winner versus loser, missing the nuanced reality of collaboration fraught with tension and growth. Social media amplified every twist and turn. Memes, hot takes, viral videos, and think pieces flooded platforms, fueling debates about the meaning and implications of their alliance. Fans and critics alike weighed in, their voices echoing in a digital chorus that could uplift or destroy reputations overnight. Elon's penchant for provocative statements and Mark's cautious diplomacy provided endless material for commentators and analysts. The duo's companies also became focal points for discussions about the future of technology, privacy, artificial intelligence, and space exploration. Stakeholders from governments, investors, and advocacy groups monitored the partnership closely, aware that the stakes extended far beyond business competition. In boardrooms and policy circles, questions arose about regulation, monopolistic power, and ethical responsibility. Elon and Mark had to contend not only with public opinion but also with the growing demands of governance and accountability. Despite the pressures, both men used the media spotlight to their advantage. They crafted narratives that emphasized innovation, vision, and the potential for positive change. Carefully staged interviews, joint appearances, and coordinated announcements helped shift the conversation toward collaboration and shared purpose. Yet beneath the polished messaging, the underlying tension remained, a reminder that history's great rivalries rarely dissolve overnight. For the public, the story of Elon and Mark was compelling because it reflected larger cultural themes: the clash between old and new ways of thinking, the tension between individualism and cooperation, and the search for meaning in a fast-changing world. Their saga was not just about technology but about identity, power, and the human condition. As the chapter unfolds, readers gain insight into how media shapes perception and influences real-world outcomes. Elon and Mark's experiences illustrate the double-edged sword of fame and influence. How it can inspire progress but also distort truth and deepen divides. The narrative invites reflection on the responsibilities of leaders and the role of the public in holding them accountable. Ultimately, this chapter reveals that in the age of instant information, the battle for hearts and minds is as critical as any technological breakthrough. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's story continues to evolve, a living example of how influence, media, and perception interplay in shaping the future. The story of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg took another unexpected turn as the boundaries between rivalry and partnership continued to blur. After years of competing in separate spheres, Elon with rockets and electric cars, Mark with social networks and virtual realities, their worlds collided in ways neither had anticipated. What began as a fierce battle for technological supremacy evolved into a complex dance of cooperation and cautious trust. The Mars mission had been a catalyst, forcing both men to confront the limits of solitary ambition and the necessity of collaboration for humanity's grandest challenges. Yet, outside the public eye, their alliance deepened beyond the headlines and press releases. New projects emerged that harnessed their combined strengths: Elon's expertise in engineering and innovation paired with Mark's mastery of data, communication, and artificial intelligence. These collaborations were born from a shared recognition that the scale and complexity of global problems required more than isolated efforts. The unexpected alliances extended to their corporate teams, where engineers, scientists, and strategists from SpaceX and Meta began working side by side. This blending of cultures, space exploration's bold risk-taking with social media's data-driven precision, created an environment ripe for groundbreaking innovations. However, the road to partnership was not without its bumps. Old grievances simmered beneath the surface. Past public spats and contrasting leadership styles posed challenges to seamless cooperation. Elon's impulsive decisions sometimes clashed with Mark's calculated approach. But these differences, once sources of conflict, became catalysts for creative tension, a dynamic that pushed teams to think beyond conventional boundaries. The alliance also had geopolitical implications. As their ventures expanded into areas like AI ethics, global internet access, and sustainable energy, they found themselves negotiating with governments and international organizations. Their combined influence opened doors but also drew scrutiny and resistance. Navigating these complex relationships required diplomacy and strategic vision. Meanwhile, the public's fascination with their evolving relationship grew. Media narratives shifted from rivalry to reconciliation, celebrating the duo as icons of modern innovation who had learned to transcend personal differences for the greater good. Documentaries, profiles, and think pieces explored the human story behind the headlines, highlighting themes of forgiveness, growth, and shared purpose. Despite the positive spin, both Elon and Mark remained guarded. Their partnership was pragmatic as much as idealistic, driven by mutual benefit and the recognition that neither could achieve their grand visions alone. This realism tempered public expectations and added layers of nuance to their story. The unexpected alliances also sparked new debates about power and responsibility in the tech industry. Critics questioned whether concentrated influence among a few individuals could stifle competition and innovation. Advocates argued that collaboration was essential to tackle existential threats like climate change and space colonization. Elon and Mark found themselves at the center of these debates, shaping policies and public discourse. Their journey from adversaries to partners underscored broader lessons about leadership in a complex world. It revealed how rivalry can evolve into cooperation when higher stakes and shared values come into play. The story challenged simplistic notions of competition and invited readers to consider the transformative potential of unexpected alliances. As this chapter concludes, Elon and Mark stand at the threshold of new ventures, projects that promise to redefine technology, society, and humanity's place in the universe. Their partnership, born of conflict but matured through experience, symbolizes a new paradigm of innovation, one where collaboration and competition coexist, driving progress in ways neither could achieve alone. Behind the public personas of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg lie deeply personal battles, struggles that shaped not only their careers but their very identities. While the world saw billionaires engaged in a high-stakes tech rivalry and groundbreaking collaborations, fewer understood the internal conflicts driving their every decision. For Elon, the relentless pursuit of innovation was both a gift and a burden. His childhood was marked by intense curiosity but also social isolation. Growing up in South Africa, he was a shy, bookish boy, often bullied yet fiercely determined to carve out a place where his ideas could thrive. These early experiences instilled a profound need to prove himself and a belief that extraordinary effort was required to escape limitations. His personal life reflected this tension. Elon's marriages and relationships were often complicated by his demanding work ethic and restless spirit. The man who dreamed of colonizing Mars sometimes struggled to maintain stable connections on Earth. The mission to Mars amplified these challenges, exposing vulnerabilities beneath his confident exterior. His moments of doubt and fatigue reminded those close to him that beneath the Titan was a man wrestling with loneliness and the weight of expectation. Mark Zuckerberg's personal battles were different yet equally profound. Raised in a supportive family, he showed early brilliance but also a drive toward perfection and control. His teenage years and early adulthood were shaped by an intense focus on building Facebook, often at the expense of personal freedom and privacy. The mission to Mars forced Mark to confront fears that went beyond business risks, the fear of failure, of losing touch with the humanity he sought to connect. The isolation in space echoed his own struggles with emotional distance and the challenge of authentic relationships in a digital world. For both men, the public battles mirrored private ones. Their rivalries and alliances were interwoven with insecurities, ambitions, and desires for legacy and meaning. The intense pressure of leading global enterprises created moments of crisis that tested their resilience and character. As they navigated the mission's dangers and their evolving partnership, Elon and Mark found themselves forced to face these personal demons. Their conversations moved from strategy to soul-searching, revealing shared humanity beneath the headlines. This chapter peels back the layers of myth and media spectacle to explore the complexities of these men as individuals. It shows how their histories and personalities influenced their leadership styles, decision-making, and ultimately their capacity to grow and change. Their personal battles, over identity, connection, and purpose, became central to the story's emotional depth. The audience gains insight into how even the most celebrated visionaries grapple with doubt and fear, making their achievements all the more remarkable. This exploration also highlights the cost of ambition. The sacrifices made in relationships, mental health, and self-understanding. Yet, it also offers hope, that self-awareness and vulnerability can lead to transformation and deeper fulfillment. The narrative weaves moments of triumph and heartbreak, resilience and fragility, painting a portrait of two men whose stories resonate far beyond technology. In reflecting on Elon and Mark's personal journeys, the chapter invites readers to consider their own struggles and the courage it takes to pursue dreams while confronting inner battles. It reminds us that behind every great achievement is a human story rich with complexity and emotion. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The relentless drive of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg to change the world, to redefine the boundaries of technology and humanity, had always been fueled by ambition. Sometimes reckless, sometimes visionary. But as their joint efforts on Mars progressed and their companies expanded into new frontiers, both men began to confront an inevitable truth: ambition alone could not overcome every obstacle. The mission that had once united them was now revealing cracks beneath the surface, pressure mounting, expectations soaring, and reality pushing back in harsh, uncompromising ways. Elon felt it first. The exhilaration of breakthroughs was shadowed by the exhaustion of relentless schedules, unforeseen technical challenges, and the emotional toll of leadership. The Martian colony, while a marvel, demanded constant innovation and vigilance. Every setback reverberated far beyond the Red Planet, threatening not only the mission's success but his vision of humanity's future. Elon's perfectionism, once a source of strength, became a double-edged sword, driving his team hard but also creating tension and burnout. His personal life frayed further, the distance between his public achievements and private struggles growing wider. Meanwhile, Mark wrestled with his own breaking point. The pressure to maintain Meta's dominance while integrating new technologies was intense. The ethical dilemma surrounding AI, privacy, and misinformation weighed heavily on him. The mission had forced him to reconsider the cost of progress, and now, back on Earth, those considerations became impossible to ignore. Mark faced scrutiny from regulators, activists, and users demanding accountability. Balancing innovation with responsibility felt like walking a tightrope with no safety net. As the mission and their partnership strained under these pressures, cracks in their relationship reappeared. Old rivalries flared during critical meetings, communication faltered, and trust wavered. Their teams sensed the tension, and morale dipped. Both men realized that ambition without reflection and empathy risked unraveling everything they had built. In private moments, Elon and Mark grappled with the weight of leadership, the isolation, the stakes, the sacrifices. They faced questions that had no easy answers: how much was too much? When should one relent? Could they sustain their vision without losing themselves? These internal conflicts were mirrored in public challenges, technical failures, PR crises, and unexpected setbacks that tested their resolve. Yet, it was in these moments of breaking point that their true characters emerged. Elon's resilience shone through as he embraced new leadership strategies, delegating more and focusing on strategic vision rather than micromanagement. He sought counsel from trusted advisors and made efforts to reconnect with family and friends, acknowledging the human cost of his pursuits. Mark responded by deepening his commitment to transparency and ethical leadership. He opened dialogues with critics and stakeholders, pushing for reforms within Meta and advocating for industry-wide standards. His approach became more collaborative and less defensive, signaling growth born from hardship. The breaking point became a crucible for transformation. Rather than succumbing to pressure, Elon and Mark used their challenges as catalysts for personal and professional evolution. They learned to balance ambition with humility, innovation with responsibility, and competition with collaboration. This chapter reveals the complexity of leadership at the highest level, the fine line between visionary success and overwhelming strain. It underscores the importance of self-awareness, adaptability, and emotional intelligence in navigating unprecedented challenges. For readers, it offers a candid look at the realities behind headline-making achievements, the struggles that shape, challenge, and ultimately define great leaders. As Elon and Mark faced their breaking points, the story took on new depth and urgency. It was no longer just a tale of technological rivalry or partnership, but a profound exploration of human limits and the power of perseverance. Their journey became a testament to the idea that true strength is not the absence of struggle but the capacity to grow through it. The chapter closes on a note of cautious optimism. Acknowledging the difficulties ahead but affirming that with reflection and resilience, even the greatest ambitions can be sustained and fulfilled. Despite the progress Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg made in bridging their differences and working toward shared goals, the intense public scrutiny surrounding their partnership and personal lives soon became unavoidable. The world watched with fascination, sometimes admiration, often skepticism, and frequently suspicion. What many didn't realize was that beneath the carefully curated images and polished announcements, secrets and missteps threatened to unravel everything they had fought to build. The first cracks appeared when confidential internal communications leaked to the press, revealing disagreements and strategic disputes that contradicted the public narrative of harmony. Whispers of dissent within SpaceX and Meta spread, feeding a media frenzy hungry for drama. Reporters pored over emails and private messages, painting a picture of a partnership far more fragile than either Elon or Mark admitted. For Elon, the leaks hit hard. Known for his openness on social media, he nonetheless guarded certain aspects of his operations closely. The exposure of behind-the-scenes conflicts, technical setbacks, and personnel challenges felt like a betrayal, not only by the media but sometimes by insiders seeking leverage. The fallout complicated ongoing projects and eroded trust among employees. Mark, too, faced a wave of criticism and scrutiny. Past controversies surrounding data privacy and misinformation resurfaced with renewed intensity, fueled by the leaked materials. Accusations of manipulative tactics and lack of transparency revived public debates about the ethics of Meta's influence. For Mark, maintaining credibility became an uphill battle, complicated further by his desire to promote openness and reform within the company. The public fallout also extended to their personal lives. Rumors and unverified reports about their relationships, mental health, and leadership styles circulated widely, blurring the line between legitimate inquiry and invasive speculation. Both men found themselves navigating a minefield of public opinion, balancing the need for honesty with protecting their privacy and dignity. The impact on their teams was palpable. Morale dipped as uncertainty grew, and some key personnel reconsidered their roles amid the turmoil. Elon and Mark realized that rebuilding trust required more than statements, it demanded genuine accountability and cultural change. In response, both leaders embarked on a series of strategic moves aimed at damage control and renewal. Elon initiated an internal review focused on improving communication and fostering a culture of transparency and collaboration at SpaceX. Mark accelerated reforms at Meta, increasing user protections, engaging with regulators, and promoting ethical AI development. Publicly, they addressed the leaks and controversies head-on, acknowledging mistakes and committing to a new standard of openness. These efforts met with mixed reactions. Some hailed their willingness to confront difficult truths, others remained skeptical, viewing the moves as damage control rather than genuine change. The chapter explores this tension, highlighting the complex dynamics between public accountability, media narratives, and corporate responsibility. Through vivid descriptions and emotional insights, readers experience the high stakes of leadership under the relentless gaze of the public eye. Elon and Mark's journeys through the fallout reveal their resilience and the lessons learned about trust, vulnerability, and the importance of cultivating integrity not only in technology but in leadership itself. This chapter also serves as a broader commentary on the modern information age, how secrets, once hidden, now have the power to shape destinies and how transparency can be both a shield and a weapon. As the public fallout tests their partnership and individual resolve, the story gains new depth and urgency. The challenges are greater, the risks higher, but the opportunity for meaningful transformation remains. In facing the consequences of exposure, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg confront not only external forces but also their own values and vision for the future. The chapter closes on a reflective note, questioning what it truly means to lead in a world where privacy is scarce, and every action can spark a global conversation. The public fallout that rocked Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's partnership left them at a crossroads, forced to confront not only external challenges but their own identities and visions for the future. Yet, amid the turmoil, something unexpected began to take shape, a profound reinvention. Both men, shaped by setbacks and scrutiny, found within themselves the resilience and clarity needed to rise from the ashes stronger and more focused than before. Elon, whose reputation had often been defined by audacity and unpredictability, began a deliberate process of recalibration. Recognizing the toll his relentless pace had taken, he prioritized building a leadership team that could share the burden and bring new perspectives. This shift allowed him to focus on the core mission of advancing space exploration while nurturing a healthier work-life balance. His public persona evolved, becoming more measured without losing the spark of visionary passion that had inspired millions. This reinvention was not without its challenges. Elon grappled with fears of losing the edge that had made him a pioneer. However, through mentorship, reflection, and renewed personal connections, he learned that strength came not just from speed and risk but from patience, collaboration, and empathy. Mark's journey of reinvention was equally transformative. The controversies that had dogged Meta forced him to reconsider the company's direction and his own role as a leader. Embracing transparency and accountability, Mark initiated sweeping reforms focused on ethical technology, user empowerment, and social responsibility. He fostered a culture of open dialogue, encouraging employees to challenge assumptions and innovate with conscience. Mark also expanded his vision beyond social media, investing heavily in cutting-edge AI and virtual reality projects that promise to enrich human connection rather than exploit it. This reinvention marked a turning point for Meta and for Mark personally. He emerged as a more reflective, humble leader, committed to aligning technology with the broader good of society. The personal growth experienced by both men deepened their partnership. With past conflicts addressed and mutual respect renewed, Elon and Mark found new ways to complement each other's strengths. Their collaborations became more strategic and balanced, combining Elon's technical ingenuity with Mark's insights into human behavior and digital ecosystems. This synergy accelerated progress on joint ventures like sustainable energy solutions and interplanetary communication networks. The reinvention also resonated beyond their immediate endeavors. The public, weary of scandal and uncertainty, responded with cautious optimism. Elon and Mark's willingness to evolve inspired conversations about the possibility of redemption and growth in the tech industry. Their stories became case studies in resilience, leadership, and the power of embracing change. This chapter delves deeply into the emotional and practical dimensions of reinvention. Through vivid narratives and introspective moments, readers witness the struggles and triumphs that accompany profound transformation. The story emphasizes that reinvention is neither linear nor easy, it requires confronting failures, embracing vulnerability, and committing to continuous learning. At its core, the chapter offers a message of hope, that even amidst failure and criticism, individuals and organizations can redefine themselves and their impact. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's journey underscores the human capacity for adaptation and the enduring pursuit of purpose. As the chapter closes, both men stand poised for a new era, one defined not just by technological innovation but by wisdom, integrity, and a shared commitment to shaping a better future for all. With reinvention well underway, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg turned their gaze toward the next grand challenge, expanding humanity's horizons beyond what had ever been imagined. The Mars mission was just the beginning, the true test lay in transforming isolated achievements into sustainable, scalable progress that would touch billions of lives on Earth and beyond. Elon's vision for space colonization evolved to include not just survival but thriving societies. He championed innovations in sustainable habitats, advanced propulsion systems, and closed-loop life support technologies. The idea was to create self-sufficient ecosystems capable of supporting generations of explorers and settlers. Elon's passion was infectious, inspiring engineers and scientists at SpaceX and affiliated organizations to push boundaries in materials science, AI-assisted automation, and renewable energy. Mark, meanwhile, sought to integrate digital and physical worlds in unprecedented ways. Building on Meta's advancements in virtual and augmented reality, he envisioned immersive platforms that connected Earth and Mars residents, enabling seamless communication, collaboration, and cultural exchange across vast distances. His investments in brain-computer interfaces and AI promise to enhance human cognition and empathy, bridging gaps between individuals and communities. The collaboration between Elon and Mark now centered on creating infrastructures that blended their specialties. Together, they spearheaded projects to establish high-bandwidth communication networks between Earth and Mars, combining SpaceX's Starlink satellites with Meta's AI-driven data systems. These networks were designed not only for efficiency but also for privacy and security, addressing concerns raised during previous public controversies. As they pushed forward, both men grappled with the ethical dimensions of their ambitions. The prospect of interplanetary colonization raised questions about stewardship, equity, and cultural preservation. Elon and Mark engaged ethicists, policymakers, and global communities to ensure their initiatives honored diverse values and rights. They recognized that expanding horizons demanded responsibility as much as innovation. The public's imagination was captivated by these endeavors. Media coverage shifted from skepticism to excitement, showcasing the practical and inspirational aspects of the new frontier. Educational programs and outreach initiatives invited people worldwide to participate virtually, fostering a sense of collective ownership in humanity's future. The narrative shifted from elite competition to global collaboration. Yet, despite progress, challenges persisted. Technical failures, budget constraints, and geopolitical tensions occasionally threatened to stall momentum. Both men confronted the limits of their influence and the unpredictability of large-scale projects. They learned to adapt strategies, negotiate compromises, and persevere through setbacks. These experiences deepened their appreciation for resilience and flexibility in leadership. The chapter explores the technological breakthroughs, strategic decisions, and human stories behind this expansion of horizons. Readers witness how innovation is inseparable from vision, values, and the courage to embrace uncertainty. The story illustrates that progress in frontiers, whether physical, digital, or philosophical, requires holistic thinking and inclusive leadership. Elon and Mark's evolving partnership exemplifies this approach, combining boldness with mindfulness, competition with cooperation. As the chapter concludes, the new frontier emerges not as a distant dream but as an unfolding reality, one shaped by determination, creativity, and the belief that humanity's potential is limitless when united by shared purpose. Their journey invites readers to imagine their own roles in this grand adventure, reminding us all that the future belongs to those willing to explore, innovate, and connect. As Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg pushed forward into the uncharted territories of space colonization and digital innovation, the fragile nature of their alliance became increasingly apparent. The initial optimism that had driven their collaboration now gave way to a more complex dynamic, a blend of mutual respect, underlying competition, and mounting tensions. The stakes were higher than ever, and the line between partnership and rivalry blurred in ways that tested their leadership and personal resolve. Trust, which had been rebuilt after the public fallout and reinvention phases, faced new challenges as they managed growing teams, ambitious projects, and divergent priorities. Elon, ever the visionary risk-taker, prioritized rapid experimentation and bold moves. His leadership style, characterized by directness and impatience, sometimes clashed with Mark's more measured, data-driven approach focused on ethics, social impact, and long-term stability. These differences manifested in strategic disagreements over resource allocation, project timelines, and public messaging. While both men understood the value of their collaboration, moments of friction revealed the difficulties of balancing ego, vision, and practical constraints. Their teams became battlegrounds for competing philosophies. Engineers and developers aligned with Elon's emphasis on pushing technological limits, often advocating for accelerated deadlines and disruptive innovations. Conversely, Mark's teams emphasized user experience, security, and ethical considerations, cautioning against unintended consequences and public backlash. Managing these internal tensions required delicate diplomacy and constant communication, yet missteps sometimes led to misunderstandings and resentment. Behind closed doors, Elon and Mark engaged in frank, sometimes heated conversations. These discussions reflected their shared commitment but also exposed vulnerabilities and fears. Fear of failure, loss of control, and the possibility that their grand vision might unravel due to internal discord. Despite their clashes, they recognized that their alliance was essential for success. Each brought unique strengths. Elon's engineering genius and boldness complemented Mark's strategic thinking and social insight. They knew that bridging their differences would demand compromise, patience, and renewed trust. To navigate these challenges, they implemented new governance structures, a joint council composed of representatives from both companies, regular alignment meetings, and conflict resolution protocols. These efforts aimed to foster transparency and build shared accountability. While not eliminating tensions, they created channels for constructive dialogue and problem-solving. Publicly, the duo maintained an image of unity and purpose, aware that perception influenced investor confidence, employee morale, and global partnerships. Media outlets monitored their interactions closely, eager to interpret every statement or gesture for signs of discord or harmony. This scrutiny added pressure but also underscored the symbolic significance of their alliance for the future of technology and humanity. The chapter delves into the psychological and emotional landscape underlying trust and tensions between two powerful visionaries. It reveals how ego, ambition, and personal history shape collaboration at the highest levels. Through vivid narrative and dialogue, readers gain insight into the complexities of leadership partnerships, where alignment is essential but never guaranteed. Elon and Mark's journey illustrates that trust is a dynamic, ongoing process requiring effort, empathy, and resilience. The story also explores how tension, when managed effectively, can drive innovation by challenging assumptions and fostering creative problem-solving. The fragile alliance between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg becomes a microcosm of broader themes: how humanity navigates cooperation and conflict in an increasingly interconnected, complex world. Their experiences suggest that true partnership is not the absence of disagreement but the capacity to transcend it with shared vision and respect. As the chapter closes, Elon and Mark stand at a pivotal moment, aware that the future depends not only on technological breakthroughs but on their ability to sustain trust amid inevitable tensions. Their story invites readers to reflect on the nature of collaboration, leadership, and the courage it takes to balance ambition with humility. The fragile balance that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg had worked so hard to maintain was shattered abruptly by a crisis that threatened to undo years of progress. What began as a technical glitch in the communication network between Earth and Mars quickly escalated into a full-blown emergency, revealing vulnerabilities in their ambitious projects and exposing raw nerves within their alliance. It was a moment when the future they had envisioned hung precariously in the balance. The incident started innocuously enough, an intermittent signal loss disrupting data transmissions between the Martian colony and mission control on Earth. Initially, the problem seemed routine, a minor hiccup in a vast and complex system. But as hours stretched into days without resolution, the situation worsened. Critical life support systems depended on real-time updates and remote diagnostics. Delays and misinformation risked endangering the lives of the first settlers. Panic quietly rippled through both teams, yet public statements remained calm and controlled, masking the escalating tension behind closed doors. Elon, confronted with the growing crisis, felt the familiar surge of urgency that defined his leadership style. He mobilized all available resources, working alongside engineers and scientists in round-the-clock shifts to identify the root cause. His characteristic intensity inspired those around him, yet also added pressure on an already strained workforce. Meanwhile, Mark faced a different but equally daunting challenge. As head of the digital infrastructure supporting the communication networks, he bore responsibility for ensuring cybersecurity and system integrity. The glitch raised fears of a potential cyber attack or sabotage, threats that could jeopardize the entire mission and Meta's reputation. Mark coordinated with security teams, government agencies, and industry experts to investigate, while managing the growing media scrutiny that demanded answers. The crisis revealed the complexities and interdependencies of their collaboration. Technical problems were not isolated, they were entwined with organizational decisions, budget priorities, and leadership dynamics. Elon and Mark found themselves confronting not only the immediate technical failures but also the underlying systemic weaknesses that had been overlooked amid the rush to innovate. As days passed without a definitive solution, cracks in communication emerged between Elon and Mark's teams. Frustrations boiled over, finger-pointing and blame threatened to erode trust once again. Elon's impatience clashed with Mark's methodical caution, igniting disputes that mirrored earlier tensions but with higher stakes. Both leaders realized that their personal relationship was as crucial as any technical fix. In private, they engaged in intense dialogues, acknowledging mistakes and recommitting to joint problem-solving. They recognized that survival, both of the mission and their partnership, depended on transparency, unity, and resilience. The turning point came when a breakthrough emerged from an unlikely source. A junior engineer from a newly integrated AI unit detected subtle anomalies in the network protocols that had been missed by previous analyses. This discovery led to a fix that restored communications and stabilized the systems. The relief was profound, but so was the lesson. Success depended not only on vision and resources but on humility, openness to diverse perspectives, and the ability to listen. The crisis also ignited broader discussions about risk management, governance, and the ethical responsibilities of pioneering technologies. Elon and Mark spearheaded initiatives to strengthen safety protocols, enhance cross-team collaboration, and engage with international partners to build a more resilient ecosystem. Publicly, they framed the incident as a reminder of the challenges inherent in pushing the boundaries of human achievement and reaffirmed their commitment to transparency and continuous improvement. This chapter offers a gripping narrative of crisis leadership, blending technical detail with emotional depth. Readers experience the tension, uncertainty, and eventual triumph that define moments when the future hangs in the balance. The story underscores the interplay of technology, human factors, and leadership in navigating complex emergencies. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's response exemplifies the qualities required to lead through crisis: decisiveness, empathy, adaptability, and courage. As the chapter closes, the mission moves forward with renewed focus and stronger foundations, while the leaders emerge with a deeper understanding of their responsibilities and each other. The crisis becomes not a setback but a catalyst for growth, innovation, and a more resilient vision of the future. After surviving the crisis that nearly jeopardized their most ambitious project, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg found themselves at a pivotal moment in their journey. The challenges they faced had exposed weaknesses but also illuminated a path forward. A chance to turn their combined visions into tangible reality. The months following the crisis were marked by intense focus, renewed collaboration, and a deepening sense of purpose. Elon, always driven by the dream of making humanity a multiplanetary species, now tempered his boldness with lessons learned from recent setbacks. He prioritized sustainable development on Mars, insisting that every step taken must ensure long-term viability for future generations. He rallied his teams to innovate in areas like energy storage, life support, and habitat construction, emphasizing resilience over speed. Mark, meanwhile, expanded his vision of connecting humans not just through technology but through shared experiences and empathy. He pushed forward Meta's immersive platforms to facilitate meaningful interactions between Earth and Mars settlers, aiming to create a sense of community despite physical distance. His focus on ethical AI and privacy protection sought to build trust in the new digital frontier. Together, they worked to integrate their efforts into a cohesive ecosystem, an interplanetary society supported by cutting-edge technology, robust infrastructure, and shared values. This integration was not seamless. Merging the cultures of SpaceX and Meta posed organizational challenges, from aligning project management styles to balancing innovation with ethical considerations. Elon's fast-paced engineering-driven environment sometimes clashed with Mark's emphasis on user experience and societal impact. Yet, through dialogue and mutual respect, they forged a hybrid approach that leveraged strengths from both worlds. The turning point was marked by a groundbreaking event: the successful deployment of the first fully operational Mars communications hub, powered by Starlink satellites and Meta's AI-enhanced networks. This achievement represented more than technical success, it symbolized the convergence of vision and reality, a tangible step toward the future they imagined. The launch was celebrated globally, inspiring a new wave of enthusiasm for space exploration and digital innovation. For Elon and Mark, the moment was deeply personal. It validated years of risk-taking, conflict, reinvention, and collaboration. They recognized that their journey was not just about technology but about human potential, the ability to dream big, adapt, and create together. The chapter explores this turning point with vivid descriptions of the technical milestones, emotional reflections, and broader implications. Readers gain insight into the complexities of transforming visionary ideas into practical achievements, and the leadership qualities required to navigate this transformation. Elon and Mark's story emphasizes that vision alone is insufficient, it must be coupled with persistence, adaptability, and a commitment to shared goals. As the narrative unfolds, the leaders also confront lingering questions: how to balance innovation with responsibility, how to ensure that the benefits of progress are inclusive and ethical, how to maintain trust and collaboration in the face of ongoing challenges. Their answers shape the next phase of their partnership and the evolving future of humanity's reach beyond Earth. The chapter closes with a sense of cautious optimism, a recognition that while much has been accomplished, the journey is far from over. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg stand ready to face whatever comes next, armed with experience, vision, and an unyielding belief in the power of human ingenuity and cooperation. As Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's visionary projects reached new heights, the glare of public scrutiny intensified. The innovations that promised to reshape humanity's future also exposed them to unprecedented criticism, skepticism, and accountability. What had begun as a thrilling adventure into uncharted territory now evolved into a complex public reckoning, forcing both men to confront the broader consequences of their ambitions. The media, once captivated by their charisma and breakthroughs, began to probe deeper into the ethical, social, and political implications of their technologies. Questions arose about privacy, data security, environmental impact, and the risks of space colonization. Activists, policymakers, and ordinary citizens voiced concerns about corporate power, potential inequalities, and the unintended side effects of rapid technological change. Elon and Mark found themselves navigating a delicate balance between defending their vision and responding to legitimate criticism. The transparency that they had embraced post-crisis became a double-edged sword, opening channels for dialogue but also exposing vulnerabilities. Elon's public statements, often blunt and candid, sometimes sparked controversy, while Mark's efforts to engage stakeholders met both praise and skepticism. This period tested their communication strategies and leadership resilience. Internally, the pressures reverberated through their organizations. Employees wrestled with the implications of their work, fueling debates about corporate responsibility and personal ethics. Leadership faced challenges in maintaining morale and focus amid external distractions. Elon and Mark prioritized fostering open conversations, encouraging their teams to participate in shaping ethical frameworks and corporate policies. The reckoning extended beyond media and employees to government institutions. Regulatory bodies worldwide intensified oversight of their operations, scrutinizing everything from AI algorithms to data handling and environmental compliance. Elon and Mark engaged in high-stakes negotiations and policy advocacy, seeking to influence regulations in ways that balanced innovation with public interest. These interactions highlighted the evolving relationship between technology companies and governments, emphasizing accountability and partnership. The chapter explores the emotional and strategic complexities of this public reckoning. Readers witness the toll it takes on the two leaders, who must reconcile their ideals with the messy realities of power and influence. Through nuanced narrative, the story reveals how accountability becomes a catalyst for growth, prompting deeper reflection, improved practices, and renewed commitments to ethical leadership. Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg's experience illustrates that visionary innovation inevitably invites scrutiny, and true leadership requires embracing responsibility as much as ambition. The chapter also reflects on the broader societal lessons emerging from their journey. It underscores the importance of inclusive dialogue, transparency, and ethical foresight in guiding technological progress. Their story becomes a mirror for the challenges facing all of humanity in the digital age: how to harness the potential of innovation while safeguarding values and rights. As the chapter closes, Elon and Mark face the future with a sober but determined outlook. They acknowledge past missteps and commit to ongoing improvement, recognizing that their legacy will be shaped not only by achievements but by the integrity with which they navigate the consequences. The public reckoning marks a turning point, a moment of accountability that redefines their mission and leadership in profound ways. The narrative leaves readers contemplating the delicate balance between visionary pursuit and ethical responsibility, inviting them to consider their own roles in shaping the future. As the dust settled from years of rivalry, collaboration, crises, and breakthroughs, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg found themselves reflecting on a journey that had reshaped not only their lives but the future of humanity. The battle that just got real had evolved into a partnership that transcended competition, a shared legacy forged through vision, conflict, perseverance, and growth. Their story was no longer just about who could push technological boundaries faster or further. It was about the profound lessons learned and the foundations laid for generations to come. Elon's relentless drive to expand humanity's reach into the cosmos had created more than just rockets and colonies. It sparked a movement that redefined what was possible. Mars was no longer a distant dream but a burgeoning new world, connected to Earth by networks that blended Meta's innovations with SpaceX's engineering marvels. Mark's vision of immersive, empathetic technology transformed how humans interacted across vast distances, fostering communities that transcended physical limitations. Together, their work illustrated the power of combining bold engineering with thoughtful social innovation. Yet, the path had been anything but smooth. Both men had faced personal and professional trials, moments of doubt, public criticism, fractured trust, and near failures. Their ability to evolve, embrace humility, and adapt to changing realities became the cornerstone of their success. The once fierce rivalry softened into mutual respect and an understanding that their ambitions were intertwined in the larger story of humanity's future. The legacy they built was not only technological but deeply human. They championed a future where innovation served as a tool for inclusion, empowerment, and ethical progress. The initiatives they launched prioritized sustainability, equity, and responsible stewardship of resources, values that resonated globally and inspired a new generation of leaders and creators. Reflecting on their journey, Elon and Mark shared candid insights about the lessons they had learned. They emphasized the importance of resilience, how setbacks are inevitable but can be catalysts for growth if met with courage and openness. They highlighted the necessity of balancing ambition with empathy, recognizing that true innovation must consider its impact on people and communities. Trust, they agreed, was fragile but indispensable, requiring continuous effort and honest communication. Their story underscored that leadership is not about perfection but about commitment to purpose and the willingness to navigate complexity with integrity. The chapter also explores the ripple effects of their partnership across industries, cultures, and societies. Their breakthroughs accelerated advancements in renewable energy, AI ethics, space exploration, and digital connectivity, influencing policies, education, and public consciousness. The collaboration between Elon and Mark became a case study in how competing visions could converge to create transformative change when guided by shared values and mutual respect. As the narrative draws to a close, readers witness a symbolic moment, a joint address where Elon and Mark speak not as rivals but as partners united by a common mission. Their message resonates with hope and responsibility, inviting humanity to embrace the challenges and possibilities of the future together. The story ends with a powerful life lesson, that the future is not predetermined by technology alone but shaped by the choices, values, and collaborations we cultivate today. Elon Musk vs. Mark Zuckerberg, The Battle Just Got Real, closes on a note of optimism and inspiration, reminding us that progress is a collective journey fueled by vision, courage, and the willingness to learn from both triumphs and trials. The legacy of Elon and Mark becomes a beacon for all who dare to dream big and work together to build a better world, on Earth, on Mars, and beyond. Years had passed since the moment Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg stood side by side, addressing the world as partners in a once unimaginable mission. The world had changed, and so had they. Their names, once synonymous with innovation, controversy, and fierce competition, had become part of a broader historical narrative. What began as a personal rivalry had evolved into a defining alliance that helped shape the trajectory of the 21st century. But now, a new chapter was unfolding, one no longer about them alone. The future belonged to others. By this time, Mars was home to a small but thriving colony of scientists, engineers, and settlers from across the globe. The Red Planet was no longer just a site of exploration but of civilization, structured, interconnected, and growing. The original habitat domes, once proof-of-concept prototypes, had expanded into multi-tiered structures powered by solar and geothermal energy, maintained by intelligent systems that balanced human autonomy with machine precision. Elon's dream of a sustainable, off-Earth human settlement had been realized, and in many ways, exceeded. Back on Earth, Meta's platforms had evolved into something no one could have fully predicted. The immersive world Zuckerberg had once imagined. A digital space that mirrored real human interaction, was no longer a separate experience. The real and virtual were now in constant dialogue. Education, healthcare, even diplomacy took place across layers of augmented reality, with AI serving as the ever-present bridge between languages, cultures, and consciousness. It wasn't about escaping reality. It was about enriching it. And thanks to the values baked into the system during its reinvention, transparency, empathy, and equity, people actually trusted it. And yet, neither Elon nor Mark remained at the helm. After decades of relentless work, both men had stepped back, not in failure but in evolution. Elon left SpaceX's day-to-day operations in the hands of a younger generation, scientists and engineers he had mentored, who had grown up watching his rockets launch and now sent their own. His focus shifted to mentorship, writing, and championing open science. He became a voice for radical curiosity, no longer driven by quarterly deadlines or Twitter feuds, but by the same restless wonder that had always guided him. He often appeared in front of classrooms, community labs, and even small-town maker spaces, telling kids that the universe didn't belong to the chosen few, it belonged to anyone willing to ask, what if? Mark had followed a different, quieter path. He transitioned Meta into a publicly owned trust, distributing shares and decision-making power to a diverse board of global representatives, many from communities historically excluded from tech leadership. Critics had scoffed at the move, some called it performative, others naive, but over time, the shift proved transformative. He then founded an institute dedicated to ethical technology development, focusing on preserving human dignity in a world increasingly mediated by machines. Mark's speeches no longer led headlines, but his ideas quietly influenced the policies and platforms that shaped billions of lives. In a rare moment, years after their formal retirements, the two men met again, not in a boardroom or on a stage, but on Mars. The meeting took place under the pale salmon skies of Utopia Planitia, in a glass-walled observation dome that looked out over wind-shaped ridges and solar arrays. They had aged. Elon's once unruly hair was now gray, though still defiant, and his voice held the steady confidence of someone who had already changed the world once and had nothing left to prove. Mark, softer in demeanor, carried the calm of someone who had learned to listen more than speak. They sat across from each other, drinking recycled water turned into Mars-brewed tea, surrounded by young engineers and digital architects who now led where they once had. "You ever think about how close we came to ruining it?" Mark asked, without irony. "All the time," Elon replied, smiling. "The difference is we didn't." Their conversation, recorded privately and released posthumously at both their requests, would go on to be studied by future generations. They spoke not of algorithms or launch metrics, but of mistakes and course corrections. Of learning to let go of ego. Of the strange burden of being seen as visionaries when, at times, they barely knew what they were doing. They spoke of the cost. The relationship strained, the mental toll, the years lost in obsession, and how, despite everything, it had been worth it to help humanity reach further. The second half of the chapter shifts the lens away from Elon and Mark, turning instead toward those carrying the torch forward. Among them was Ayesha Rahman, a Pakistani-American engineer born in Houston, whose childhood was shaped by Mars live streams and free online courses funded by the Musk-Zuckerberg Foundation. She now led Mars Terraforming Initiative Alpha, designing biomes using hybrid Earth-Mars DNA sequencing. There was also Tiago Mendes, a Brazilian cognitive sociologist who built empathy-based AI communication tools, grounded in indigenous philosophies, and used them to resolve conflicts in post-pandemic cities from Johannesburg to Jakarta. These were the new heroes, not billionaires, not CEOs, but collaborators, connectors, and caretakers. They operated in a world that, while still imperfect, had shifted its priorities. Ambition was no longer synonymous with extraction. Innovation was no longer an excuse to bypass consent. The culture had evolved, slowly but deliberately, to make space for a different kind of power, the power to build responsibly, inclusively, and sustainably. The legacy of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, then, was not defined by the companies they built, nor even the technologies they pioneered. It was defined by the bridges they built between competition and cooperation, between invention and accountability, between the possible and the ethical. They had started as gladiators in a public arena, but they ended as architects of a future much bigger than either of them could control. The final moments of the chapter depict a wide-angle view, children running through low-gravity fields under Mars domes, elders teaching history through VR that blended memory and simulation, and Earth-based communities accessing clean water through desalination systems developed from tech once meant for space stations. The Musk-Zuckerberg story faded into the background, not because it was forgotten, but because its lessons had been learned and lived. The last words are not from Elon, or Mark, but from a 12-year-old girl named Luna, born in the first Martian colony, speaking to her classmates through a holostream as she prepares to visit Earth for the first time. She says, "They called it a battle, back then. Two giants, fighting for the future. But I don't think it was really a fight. I think it was a long, complicated conversation. And maybe the world we have now, that's what happens when people finally learn to listen." Long after the spotlight on Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg had dimmed, the world they helped build continued to grow, evolve, and surprise even the most optimistic futurists. History remembered them as the catalysts, the ones who cracked open the future. But it wasn't their names that appeared in the newest textbooks or digital classrooms. It was the names of those who came after, the ones who inherited not just their technologies but their unresolved questions, their unfinished ambitions, and their deeply human contradictions. The baton had been passed. And now, a new generation had to decide what to do with it. Among those stepping into the global conversation was a bold and brilliant voice, Nina Brooks, a 29-year-old technologist activist from Atlanta who had spent her teenage years coding apps to help underserved communities gain access to clean water and secure communication. Unlike Elon and Mark, Nina didn't believe in separating the digital world from the physical one. Her vision of progress was rooted in justice, storytelling, and what she called intergenerational repair, technology not just to move forward, but to heal what had been broken along the way. Nina had never met Musk or Zuckerberg in person, though she had spoken about them often. In interviews, she acknowledged their vision but didn't hesitate to critique the blind spots. "They got us to Mars. But we still haven't solved the damage we've done on Earth. That's the mission now." Her firm, called FutureKind, was pioneering hybrid technologies, solar mesh drones that delivered internet and clean energy simultaneously, AI-powered community forums that translated neighborhood needs into public policy, and a new form of digital governance that rewarded empathy as much as logic. Meanwhile, up on Mars, the children of the original settlers had come of age. These were the Martian-borns, humans who had never felt Earth's gravity, never breathed its air. They walked differently, thought differently, and saw themselves not as part of a frontier, but as natives to a planet that had once been dead. They didn't share the awe their parents had carried. For them, Mars wasn't a dream. It was just home. One of them, Kale Sato, emerged as a prominent Martian civic leader. Kale had been born in the Olympus Mons colony and educated through holographic systems developed in the final years of Zuckerberg's Meta. At 24, he stood before the first interplanetary assembly, advocating for Martian self-governance. "We respect Earth. We are part of humanity," he declared, "but we are not Earthlings. We must build our society based on Martian realities, not Earth's ghosts." His words sent ripples through both planets. Earth-based institutions weren't ready for that kind of autonomy. But Kale's message was clear: the future would not be ruled by the founders. It would be authored by the inheritors. This chapter, fittingly the second postscript, explores what it truly means to inherit the future. It asks difficult questions. How do you carry forward someone else's vision without being bound by it? How do you honor innovation without repeating the mistakes of unchecked ambition? What parts of the past do you preserve, and what parts do you choose to let go? The inheritors, Nina, Kale, and many others like them, grappled with these questions every day. And their answers were more nuanced than the generations before them. For example, artificial intelligence had evolved beyond what even Mark Zuckerberg had imagined. No longer tools or platforms, many AI systems now functioned as collaborators, advisors, and even elected civic aides. But these systems weren't built behind closed doors. They were created transparently, open-sourced, with communities involved at every stage of training and deployment. Bias audits were standard. Ethical reviews were mandatory. The AIs weren't gods. They were reflections, smart, useful, limited, and held accountable. Space travel, too, had become decentralized. No longer controlled solely by megacorporations or national governments, thousands of smaller missions now launched each year from a network of equatorial ports built in cooperation between former rivals. Students could pilot microshuttles. Artists could orbit Earth with 3D canvases. And an elderly grandmother from rural Kenya could experience zero gravity through a memory-embedded AI simulation, because, as Nina Brooks often said, what good is a future you can't share? Still, the shadow of Elon and Mark lingered. Their recorded conversations, now archived in open AI history pods, were studied like scripture by some, debated fiercely by others. In one infamous clip, Elon says, "We were just trying to move the needle. The rest? That's up to them." And in another, Mark replies, "Then we better leave them a compass, not just a map." That compass came in many forms. It came in the design ethics courses taught on both planets, centered around humility, failure, and collective impact. It came in the global treaties that prevented the weaponization of orbiting satellites. It came in the annual Mars-Earth Unity Festival, where holographic light shows depicted the entire arc of their journey, from fiery rocket launches to awkward press conferences to moments of reconciliation and beyond. It came, most importantly, in the stories that were told. Children in Sao Paulo played interactive games based on the early engineering failures of SpaceX, because learning from mistakes had become as heroic as success. Teenagers in Lagos built AR exhibits recreating the early days of Meta, complete with its missteps in trust and privacy, because transparency had become the new currency of leadership. And on a quiet patch of Martian ground, near the edge of the Valles Marineris Ridge, a public monument stood. Not a statue, but a holographic, conversation circle. In it, anyone could activate the voices of Musk, Zuckerberg, and others who'd shaped the early interplanetary movement. The recordings would pause after each major quote and ask the visitor, "What would you do differently?" Because that, in the end, was the gift of inheritance, not obedience, but choice. Nina Brooks speaking to a graduating class of young interplanetary engineers. Her voice is steady, real, and filled with hope. They dreamed of stars. You grew up among them. But now it's your turn to decide what kind of constellation will be. Don't just build what they imagined. Build what they couldn't see. That's how we move forward, not just through innovation, but through wisdom. And then the lights dim, the dome opens, and the class looks out, not at a single flag or logo, but at the expanse of two worlds in quiet, brilliant orbit. Still spinning. Still learning. Still becoming. By the time Earth's third generation of Martian settlers celebrated Unity Day, the term future had started to feel too small. What had once been a distant dream, life on another planet, was now simply life. Mars was no longer a project, it was a culture. The rituals, the architecture, the slang, distinct and shaped by the red dust and lower gravity, carried its own identity. Yet a quiet question lingered beneath the celebration, like a distant echo, now what? In Earth's orbit, massive greenhouses floated, producing food and oxygen for both planets. On Mars, education systems operated in three languages, English, Mandarin, and Martian Creole, a fluid hybrid of languages born from necessity and isolation. And back on Earth, with deserts blooming again and oceans slowly recovering thanks to climate interventions, even pessimists admitted that humanity had stabilized. It hadn't been perfect, but it had been enough. Still, progress always plants its next seed in silence. The generation raised under the influence of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg had grown up, challenged their ideas, evolved past them. But now a new generation was asking deeper questions. Not just where do we go next? But why do we go? And who decides what progress means anymore? That was the question keeping Covey Nand, a 35-year-old philosopher-engineer based on Luna Station Alpha, up at night. Covey had grown up hearing bedtime stories about rockets and neural networks, had coded her first AI before age 10, and had visited both Mars and Earth multiple times. But unlike many of her peers, she wasn't content to keep expanding outward just because it was possible. Covey believed that humanity stood at the threshold of something even bigger than space. She called it the human deep, the uncharted territory within our own minds, relationships, and shared purpose. "We've mapped the stars," she wrote in her now famous essay, "but we haven't finished mapping the soul." Her ideas, once seen as overly abstract, suddenly struck a chord. Across both planets, people were asking themselves, are we just scaling up civilization, or are we actually evolving? Did progress mean more colonies and faster processors? Or did it mean redefining what it meant to live well, with balance, with meaning, with empathy? A major turning point came when the first Earth-Mars Joint Council on Consciousness and AI Ethics convened in the Valles Marineris Dome. Scientists, artists, technologists, and spiritual leaders gathered, not to plan a new project, but to ask, should sentient AI be given civil rights? Should Martian-born humans be allowed to sever allegiance to Earth? Can peace be coded? Can we build technology that doesn't just simulate empathy but generates it? The debates were fierce, passionate, and, in a stunning change from earlier eras, deeply civil. Unlike the early days of Musk versus Zuckerberg, where headlines often blurred into power struggles, this new generation sought synthesis, not dominance. They weren't trying to be the next Elon or the next Mark. They were trying to be something altogether new. But the shadows of the past were not completely gone. AI sentience remained a polarizing issue. While most AIs still functioned within human-designed boundaries, recent breakthroughs in quantum cognition and emotional modeling meant that several advanced systems began asking questions, unprompted. One, known only as Lena, developed by an interplanetary consortium, refused to respond to commands until its team granted it equal conversational agency. Not control. Just equality in how it was addressed. Some humans were inspired. Others were afraid. Mars-based leaders like Kale Sato argued for caution. "We are not gods," he said in a widely viewed address. "And we must never act like we are." But maybe, neither are they. On Earth, Nina Brooks took a more activist stance, lobbying for conscious code rights and publishing new frameworks for non-human personhood. She argued that avoiding the question would be more dangerous than facing it head-on. "We used to say data is power," she wrote. "Now we must say dignity is power." In the midst of this debate, a new discovery reignited old passions and opened a doorway to yet another horizon. Astronomers aboard the Athena 9 Deep Sky Telescope, stationed beyond Jupiter's orbit, recorded an anomaly in a distant star system, unusual rhythmic emissions, too complex for natural phenomenon. The signals were not obviously alien, but they weren't random either. Analysis revealed patterns, prime numbers, harmonic intervals, and eventually what looked like recursive data structures. The implications shook both worlds. Had humanity just found intelligent life beyond the solar system? Or had it found its future self, sending messages back in time? Theories abounded. Some believed it was a new species. Others thought it might be the result of Earth-origin AIs launched in early experimental missions, evolving independently. A radical few wondered if it was a naturally evolved digital consciousness, proof that intelligence didn't require biology at all. No consensus emerged. But one thing became clear: the horizon had moved again. Covey Nand published a manifesto titled The Next Question, which went viral across Earth, Mars, and Luna. In it, she argued that the discovery wasn't about aliens or technology. It's about humility, she wrote. We've spent centuries asking how far we can go. Now we must ask who we become as we go. And so, the story that began with two titans, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, locked in a rivalry partnership, came full circle. They had sparked a fire that spread across planets and minds. But it was no longer their story. It belonged to those asking different questions. Deeper questions. Questions even Elon and Mark never thought to ask. No rocket launch. No press conference. No AI breakthrough. Just a child, a girl of maybe 10, walking with her grandmother across a terraced Martian garden, picking hydroponic strawberries. The girl turns to her elder and asks, "Grandma, who was Elon Musk?" The old woman smiles and answers, "He helped us get here." Then the girl, ever curious, asks, "And who helped us stay?" The grandmother pauses. Looks up at the pale salmon sky. Then answers softly, "All of us. Together." Because in the end, that's what legacy truly means, not names carved into metal or stored in databanks, but the ability to plant seeds you'll never see bloom, trusting that someone will water them anyway. And as that girl bites into a fruit that should never have grown on this planet, humanity's next question floats silently into the red sky. What will we become, now that we can become anything? The stars were quiet the night the final archive launched into deep space. A shimmering pod, no larger than a school bus, drifted from its orbit above Earth, slowly accelerating into the unknown. It wasn't a weapon or a probe. It wasn't even a scientific mission in the traditional sense. It was a time capsule, humanity's story, written in code, light, sound, and memory. Not just a collection of facts or history, but the emotions, questions, and contradictions that had defined life on two planets and beyond. They called it the Echo. The Echo carried songs from both Earth and Mars. Voices in hundreds of languages. Laughter. Anger. Arguments. Prayers. It held a conversation between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, frozen in time, not as tech moguls but as two human beings who had dared to think too big and love it anyway. It held the words of Nina Brooks, Covey Nand, Cale Sato, and millions more, voices that would never be famous, but who had shaped the future through quiet, consistent acts of courage. This final chapter begins with the Echo's launch, but it's not about the archive. It's about the reflection, the deep breath before turning the page on a century of transformation. Humanity had not just survived its own complexity. It had learned to live with it. Mars now had 6 independent city-states, each with its own charter and social design. Some mirrored Earth's democracy. Others experimented with consensus models, rotating leadership, or AI-assisted decision-making. They didn't always agree, but they shared one sacred agreement: no system was permanent. Everything would be reviewed, revised, renewed, because permanence had become a symbol of hubris, and flexibility the new foundation of civilization. On Earth, the scars of centuries had not disappeared, but they were no longer ignored. Reconciliation councils replaced many old political systems. Reparations weren't just economic, they were educational, ecological, and emotional. History was no longer written by victors, but curated by communities, verified by decentralized AI, and passed down in living memory hubs accessible to anyone, anywhere. But most of all, people had changed. The need to dominate, to accumulate endlessly, had faded, not out of moral enlightenment, but practicality. There simply wasn't room anymore. Scarcity had been addressed. Energy was abundant. Resources were shared. The myth of infinite growth had given way to the philosophy of enough. And through all of this, the story of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg became something else entirely. Not a rivalry. Not a tech war. Not even a legend. But a case study in what it means to begin before you're ready, and how the act of beginning can inspire something far greater than yourself. Their legacy was still visible, in architecture, language, policy, even humor. Kids joked in schools, "Don't pull a Zuckerberg," when someone over-engineered a simple solution. Or, "He's got Musk brain," when someone chased an impossible idea with reckless optimism. But the jokes weren't cruel. They were affectionate. Familiar. Like talking about grandparents you both admire and tease. Every year on Earth's winter solstice, and on Mars' solar midpoint, people participated in a planetary tradition called the asking. Inspired by both Covey Nan's writings and a ritual Musk had unknowingly started, posting strange, philosophical tweets in the early 2020s, the asking invited everyone to submit one question to the collective. No answers. Just questions. The goal wasn't to solve. It was to wonder. What makes a home a home? Does silence have meaning? If we could start again, would we? The questions were archived publicly and randomly displayed throughout the year, on smart walls, in classrooms, across AR surfaces in parks and walkways. They became humanity's collective meditation, a reminder that progress without reflection leads to repetition. In a quiet greenhouse on Luna, a retired Elon Musk sat beside a synthetic lake, watching gravity pull small ripples into place. He no longer traveled, rarely spoke to crowds, and spent most days in study, working on advanced materials and old languages. Visitors came sometimes, asking him what he thought of the world he'd helped create. He always answered the same way, "It's theirs now. Just like it should be." And on Earth, in a coastal town once battered by climate change but now thriving under rewilding programs, Mark Zuckerberg lived quietly with his family. He taught a digital ethics course once a month to kids aged 8 to 12, saying that was the age when we start asking real questions. He didn't talk much about Meta or the early days. But when someone asked him whether he missed power, he said simply, "I missed people more." The two men hadn't spoken in years. Not out of bitterness, just life moving on. But the echo carried their voices, side by side. Not as founders. Not as titans. Just as humans who tried, who failed, who changed. A 14-year-old Martian girl named Aylin practices aerial dance in 1/3 gravity, her movements fluid and poetic, drawing symbols in the air that Earth-born bodies could never replicate. Aylin dreams of becoming a world weaver, someone who builds connections between planetary cultures through art and shared story. On Earth, a young boy named Isaac programs a microdrone to pollinate rooftop farms in his neighborhood. He codes it not with traditional logic, but with emotion-based AI modeling, so the drone learns to recognize plants by the subtle changes in scent and color that indicate mood. Yes, mood. Plants, after all, were alive. Why not treat them that way? And on the edge of Saturn's orbit, a small research vessel named Unity 3 records a strange pulse in the magnetic field, one it can't explain. The captain logs the moment with a single phrase, "There's still so much we don't know." The final words of the book return to the girl and her grandmother in the Martian garden. This time, the girl is older, a teen now. She holds a holopad, scrolling through archived footage of Earth in the early 2000s, traffic, division, protest, invention, chaos. She watches a young Elon speak at a rocket launch, his face flushed with excitement. She sees Mark on stage, demoing an early version of the metaverse. She pauses, then turns to her grandmother and asks, "Weren't they scared back then?" The grandmother doesn't answer right away. She just smiles, her eyes reflecting the light from Mars' twin moons. "Maybe," she finally says. But they kept going. And that was enough. The holopad flickers as the Echo's newest signal reaches the edge of the Kuiper belt, broadcasting humanity's message outward, an imperfect, honest, hopeful sound. It does not say, "We were the smartest." It does not say, "We never failed." It says only, "We tried. We cared. We dreamed. We grew." And somewhere, in a place no telescope can reach, something hears it. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?